Olá, pessoal do Território MLS, Gustavo Guimarães, diretamente aqui de Cedar Grove, New Jersey, com meu amigo Raffael Ramos, do Delaware, e hoje a gente está recebendo a presença mais do que ilustre do Mr. Ernst Tanner, diretor esportivo do Philadelphia Union, um dos mais respeitados na liga, e que vai falar um pouquinho para a gente sobre a carreira, sobre o crescimento da MLS, o número de brasileiros na liga e mais alguns assuntos. Mr. Tanner, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here with us.
Bom dia.
Bom dia. Rafa?
Well, Tanner, it's a pleasure again with you here with us. Thank you for accepting the invitation. So my first question, it's about All-Star game. If you checked the game last night, what do you think about the two Union players?
Well, it was mandatory to see and watch the game, as two of my boys are involved, and yeah, it was a pretty nice game to watch and quite interesting. I mean, the comparison between Liga MX and us is always something fascinating, and it was even more competitive than I thought.
Right.
Following this question, Mr. Tanner, I want to know if you see the MLS All-Star Game as something really necessary, having in mind that the Union have a really important game against America, and you have two important players there as well. So do you think it affects the preparation towards the game against America?
Yeah, that's a really justified question, because if you look at our season and the load and the stress our players are facing currently, it is certainly a big stretch to go over to the other side of the country on a 5-6 hours flight, spend half of the week there, and going back and maybe have only one training unit available for team training and preparation to our next game on Saturday. But on the other side, you know, MLS is doing a great job in terms of marketing, and it affects exactly two players of our team. Some teams are not even concerned with that. So I think after having all these troubles with COVID in the past in the past year, it is justified that we do it and that we advertise for what we are doing in our league, and it was certainly a good event for soccer in America.
Yeah, great. Ernest, we know that about your history, about your career. We'd like to that you talk more about. You have experience in academy manager in Germany, starting Munich, and then discover some players in Hoffenheim like Roberto Firmino, and then in Salzburg. Also, you did a great job. And talk with our audience, our Brazilian public, about your experience and what you think about the Brazilian talents.
Well, my experience is foremost in developing players, and that's my passion as well, by the way. So when I enter a club, I'm very much concerned about what is going on in terms of development, in terms of the process, the structure of a club, and that's what we are doing here in Philadelphia, by the way, as well. So we have basically a very close pathway from the very bottom parts of the club up to the top, and Brazilian players in particular always have been playing an important role in my career as well, you know, because Brazilian is one of the top, maybe even the best soccer country in the world, with a decade-long history, top players, very competitive leagues, and and the good thing with Brazilian players is they are very adaptable, so they can go wherever in the world, and they will adapt and do their best there, and that's really a nice habit, and that's what I benefited personally very much from as well.
We also have we have in total now 29 players, Brazilian players in MLS. Recently, during the summer window, the Union signed Matheus Davó from Brazil, from Corinthians. Do you think the number of Brazilians here in the league, the growth, is something momentarily, or it's going to happen no matter what?
I think it's just the start of a trend which is continuously going on in future. As you know, I mean, the market now got a little bit stuck due to COVID, and there is not so much competition from over in Europe. And at the same time, MLS is also growing and rising the level. And I think the respect MLS gets in the eyes of Brazilian clubs and players in particular is going to be higher in future as well. And this is a very good precondition for MLS to go to Brazil, do the right scouting, and sign the right players for sure.
Yeah, and still in the scouting topic. So I remember that you went to Jim Kurt, the coach, to Europe to analyze some market there. You believe that you can travel, you and Jim Kurt can travel to Brazil or South America to do the same?
Sure. I mean, the countries are open for us. And I spent quite some time last winter in Brazil anyway, but I will probably go this winter again.
About signing players, did you try to sign Lionel Messi after Barcelona release him?
I mean, the answer is basically clear. We are not the club which could sign a player like Messi, and that's not our philosophy. Yeah. When I initially was talking about player development, that implements that we are going for, in particular, younger players we can develop. And that is our DNA. That's where we are good in. And that's what we will strengthen in future as well.
Great. Let's talk about the main topic of the interview, CONCACAF Champions League. Ernest, what's your expectation about the next game, the second leg against America? It will be a hard game here at Subaru Park. The match against Santiago Solari, a great coach, and Jim Curtin. What's our expectation about that?
Look, we did quite well in Mexico City, but we're kind of unlucky and maybe a little bit too novice in certain phases of the game. I mean, the first goal we got out of a deflection was highly unlucky. The second goal we got was our own mistake and absolutely avoidable. So if you look at the game and the competitiveness of the game, we were in wide phases certainly not the worst team, but we got an unlucky result and a couple of unlucky situations at the end of the game where we maybe would have deserved the penalty. It's very tough to compete when you need to get 2 goals in order to at least go in overtime. That's what we know, but we will do our best. And I think you have always a chance in football, and that's where we believe in, and that's what we are going to try. And if we are not good enough to win it, then we need to accept it. That's quite simple.
Mr. Tanner, how difficult it is to compete against Club America when you have the salary cap reigning in our league? Is this something that it needs to be changed? It needs to grow a little bit in order to allow the union to have better players to compete? How hard it is?
Look, I mean, there is a lot of discussion going on with fusioning in between MLS and Liga MX, but without some modifications in the salary cap, that will not be possible, because money doesn't necessarily score in football. That's what we all know. But at the same time, if the differences are that much, you cannot compete. That's impossible. And, in addition, Mexico is also, in terms of the football culture, a very traditional club with great players, great clubs. So in that terms, we certainly would need to modify, but we are on a good way in MLS. And in particular in Philadelphia, we showed that we can be competitive in our system without spending too much. And that is also I would say that is also a good characteristic of our club, that we refer more on what we can do with our resources than instead of just buying and bringing good players in. And that takes care about diversity, and diversity in all phases of life is basically a very good thing.
Great. Ernst, we have our technical producer in São Paulo, Henrique Simão. You'd like to make a question, Henrique?
Hello, Ernest. It's a pleasure talking to you. I have a question. I want you to tell our audience what are the differences on the role you made it on Europe and the role you have now in Philadelphia Union. How can you describe what the work now and the difference between before? Thank you.
The position as a sporting director in MLS, and in particular here in Philadelphia, is a very powerful one, as you are really involved from the bottom to the top of the club. So I take care as well as about the academy, as well as the second and the first team. And that comprises also hiring of staff, coaches, education, tactical formations, respectively, the playing style and the methodology we are using. So it's really very holistic in a way. And over in Europe, as an academy director, you do the same for your academy, basically. But if you are a sporting director over in Europe, you probably don't have even the time to do that. You are more specific in player management and transfers than you are taking care about the total of the club.
Awesome.
Mr. Tanner, the union have been prioritizing player development, investing heavily in academy players. You sold Brandon Aronson, which has been doing good in Europe. Mark McKenzie as well. This year you have Anthony. Forgot his last name now.
Yeah, Anthony, Delaware boy, Anthony Fontana. No?
Anthony Fontana. I'm sorry, and you also have Paxton Aronson, Quinn Sullivan, and in the meantime, the union have not selected players from the MLS Super Draft. Do you think that's the trend to develop players in your own backyard?
Well, you know the story that when I came here, the first thing we did was selling our 5 picks to Cincinnati, and that has something to do with the culture we create as well. And to be honest, I love to work with players in transition when they are in particular somewhere in between 16 and 21 years old. And the players we have seen from the Super Draft, they mainly have been 21 and older. So that's not the right age category where we expect the biggest gains in their development anymore. And basically the development has been doing somebody else, but not necessarily in the way or in the sense we want to do it. So there is a structural deficit in my eyes. And in addition, I don't want to say that you can't find a good player in the Super Draft, but the highest pick we got so far was the 13th. And every following year we had somewhere in between 17 and 19. And if you look at the number of players which have been there who are really good, they are all gone when you are on your pick. And that is not necessarily the best idea to bring players in where you are not sure or where you doubt it. Yeah. And at the same time, we have a very and highly talented academy player. We can develop as well, So what we did is basically at the bottom end of our roster, we are almost only having our products, and we are working with them. And we know that not everybody will be promoted to a starter. That's very unlikely that this is going to happen. But if you look at our current boys we brought in the beginning of the season, all of them are almost having caps already. Some of them are doing extraordinary good and are close to start now. And that's the outcome of only half a year development and training with the first team. And I think that's pretty remarkable.
Absolutely, absolutely. You have Quinn Sullivan, which scored a tremendous goal against Chicago and last weekend as well against Montreal. Paxton has been good too, gaining minutes with under Curtin. Did you get any offers so far from these two players?
Well, there is already some interest, yeah. But look, we are not interested in listening to these offers in this stage. We are more or less just trying to establish them as good as possible in MLS, and we start to listen to offers once they have developed over the level of the league, because we are also known for the purpose that we do not want to block talent. And, you know, the dream of every American kid is basically to play over in Europe. And it's also part of our job that we make that dream possible and bring the next one on the stage.
Excellent, excellent. Raffael?
Well, that's all. Thanks again, Ernest, for your time. The interview was great. It's better to our Brazilian public know more about the MLS, what happened here. It was a great time. Thanks, appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Hello to Brazil.
Mr. Tanner, thank you very much. Thank you so much once again for your time, for your answers. We truly appreciate. We'll see you soon. Probably we'll see you against Club America too.
Have a good time. Thank you. Bye-bye.
You too. Take care. Thank you.